Hi, welcome back. It's Rachel Zufa, and this week we're going to talk about mysteries, but not just mysteries, mystery series. And there's nothing that I hate more than reading a fantastic book and having it end. And so I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about series because I can share with you a book that, yes, it's fantastic and it ends, but you'll be able to pick up something else and continue. And so I decided to do mysteries because, yes, it is October and it is my favorite month. And I think there's something that like people like to sit on their edge a little bit during this time of month. We like scary stories, which I am going to talk about this month, but we also like to be intrigued and to figure out puzzles. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to two of my favorite young adult mystery series, and I do hope that one of them intrigues you. So, the very first one that I'm going to talk to you about is by Harlan Coben, and he does normally write for adults. And this is his first young adult series, and it's a spinoff from one of his adult books. And so it is called Shelter. It's the first book in the series, which is about Mickey Bolitar. And you'll see that here in the bottom, a Mickey Bolitar novel. And I was introduced to this by my husband. My husband has read everything by Harlan Coben. And he told me, "You're going to really like this. You need to read this." And I said, "All right, I'm in." It's awesome. It's really awesome. And so let me go ahead and set it up for you a little bit and to tell you about Mickey. Um, Mickey, it starts off rough for Mickey. I'm just going to tell you that right off the bat, okay? And I'm not trying to laugh, but I'm kind of laughing because there's some similarities between Mickey and another protagonist in the next book, which makes me wonder what I'm thinking about liking both of these so much. Um, Mickey's family has sort of self imploded in many ways. His father was killed in a car accident, and his mother is now in rehab for various reasons, which I'm sure you can imagine. You can fill in the blanks. And so now he is living with his uncle. His uncle is the book that he comes from initially, the adult series. And he has had to switch schools. So on top of, in fact, losing his family, his mother in rehab who's lost, and his father who is dead, he's now had to switch schools. I mean, friends, everything. So I mean, his whole world has been tossed upside down, and it's very hard for him. He's a sophomore in high school, and I think it's very easy to put yourself in that situation and imagine how you would feel. And he has one really wonderful shining moment, and that is his girlfriend Ashley. Not only is she his best friend, but she gives him something to look forward to when he goes in through those front doors because there isn't much else right now. His uncle's a very busy man, and so he's often alone when he comes back at the end of the day. Until something happens. He shows up, and Ashley's not there. Okay, maybe she's sick. Um, but she continues not to be there. And he starts to worry and wonder what's going on. And so he asks her teachers, he asks the administrators, like, what's going on? Like, Ashley's not here. And they shut him down. They're not giving him any answers. It's just, she's gone. We're not going to discuss it. That's it. Her locker's cleaned out. He can't get a hold of her. Like, this is weird. I mean, it's suddenly you couldn't get a hold of your best friend, like, your partner. Like, what does that mean? What's happened to her? And so, with the enlistment of a couple of really cool friends that he's met in interesting ways, one is kind of like a real snarky sidekick. The other one is a hacker who's able to find out information that they really shouldn't have, but it comes in handy in this case. He starts to look for Ashley. And he realizes that there's a lot about her that she did not tell him, and a lot that she told him that is frankly not true. Now, along the way, and this happens right off, okay? So as he starts to try to fit things together, there's this really creepy old woman. I'm not trying to say old women are creepy because I'm an old woman, okay? But like she's older. And that doesn't mean she's taller, but she's older, okay? And she like confronts him on the street, okay? And she says, Your father is not dead. What does that mean? What does that mean? And he starts calling her the Bat Lady. All right, like, okay, there's a reason for it because how she looks and stuff. But she just keeps like popping up in different places to the point where there's certain things that she knows about his dad and his family where he's like, what does that all mean? So now he's got two mysteries. Like, what is this Bat Lady talking about when it comes to his dad? And who is Ashley? Where is Ashley? What is happening? You're going to want the second book when you finish this one, because this one, I'm not going to say it ends on a cliffhanger because there's some things resolved. But you're going to want to dive right into the next book. Harlan Coben's Shelter. Pick it up. You're going to want to know, who's the Bat Lady? Who's the Bat Lady? All right, now I'm going to move on to another one, which is an Australian import, because we got it. It really irritated me because in the United States, I had to wait a year before I could get the next one. That's the only irritation I had with the book. It's a play off of Shakespeare, and I can't resist these books. I just can't. These shows, Elementary, all those shows, I watch them all. The Sherlock show, all of them. So anyway, this is Every Breath by Ellie Marney. And it takes place in Melbourne, Australia. And she's really great at describing the city too. So you would get a really good feel about the grittiness of the city and what it feels like. And so the main character's name is James Mycroft. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Sherlock Holmes, his brother's name is Mycroft. And so that's where you kind of get that little connection there. James is very much like what we think of as the Holmes character, okay? He's brilliant. He's got great detective skills. In this book, his forensic knowledge and as far as using technology is just out of this world. And he loves science. And he is just really logical, loves puzzles, and he has some of those social skills that are lacking, okay? And he has some connection issues. And it says here, like, what if Sherlock Holmes was the boy next door? So who's next door? Well, we have a young woman who is named Rachel Watts. Holmes. You're getting it, aren't you? All right. And she is initially from the outback, and her family had a farm, and they had to move into the city because it wasn't doing well. So she's struggling with that whole transition from being out in the country to moving into a city. And so she has some of those that she's wrestling with too. Now, this is what I'm telling you about irony, that I'm picking these two books, okay, that I picked Shelter over here, and then I picked Every Breath. Because remember, Mickey, family, car crash. James, Mycroft, family, car crash. I swear, Girl Scouts honor. I wasn't even thinking about that when I picked these two books because I just like these series. But it's true. Now, he's originally from London, and his father and mother were killed in a car crash. He was in the car with them, okay? So when we talk about having issues relating to people, we have to understand, too, that James has undergone a lot of trauma. And he went to live with his next of kin, which was his aunt, who lives in Melbourne. He didn't just have to go to another school. He had to go to a whole new country. I mean, I like to read about people who are suffering trauma because I can relate. So I do relate to this young man. Both him and Rachel are in high school. They both don't quite fit into where they're at. And so they're doing the best they can. Now, the really interesting thing, so you want to know, where's the mystery, okay? They do end up bonding. They do end up becoming friends, and, maybe a little bit more than friends. You have to read to find out and see. But the interesting thing is when they're together, Rachel sort of helps him with some of those social skills. But their brains work really well together, and they're going to need that for the mystery, because what is it? James has this really great personality in the sense of he doesn't look at people when it comes to class distinctions, okay? And what he likes to do is he likes to go out late at night. He crawls out his window. He goes out late at night. His aunt doesn't really keep track of him, so to speak. And he loves to talk to the people who are homeless. He likes to, sometimes he'll bring food if he has food, but one in particular who he calls Homeless Dave, or that's what Homeless Dave calls himself. Okay, they swap really great stories, and he just enjoys listening to him. And he is really upset because at one point Homeless Dave is murdered, and the police go through the routine, of, okay, bagging up the evidence and so forth. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with crime and murder, may not know that victims are often people who don't, what we would say, don't necessarily have other voices to speak for them. And sometimes these can be individuals who are homeless, who are in transient type of careers or communities. And so James knows that the likelihood of the police really looking at what's going on with Dave is slim. And he decides to take it upon himself to investigate. And as he does so, it's kind of like what happens to Mickey. He starts to see some oddities that could be connected as well to what happened to his parents. It's part of the reason why he became so interested and involved in forensics, is he's always wanted to understand what happened that day in the car because he can't remember. And so him and Rachel team up. And what they uncover is just fascinating. If you like forensics, especially, I think this is definitely a novel for you. If you're like me and you just can't get enough of that kind of Sherlock detective reasoning, this is definitely the novel for you. And again, beginning of a series, and the way it ends, because again, I've read the others, you're going to want to have the second book. You're going to want the second book. You're going to want to see it. It's out. It's available in the US. You can get it now. You don't have to wait like some chump like me. And so I definitely recommend Every Breath. So these are the books. I'm going to show you one more time. Every Breath by Ellie Marney. Shelter by Harlan Coben. You want to read them. You want to get those clues on, my friend. And remember that I hope that one of them appeals to you, and that you discover a really good series, a really good mystery. If you haven't tried one, try it. Try to exercise that brain of yours and see what you think. And until then, I really hope that this finds you in good health, that you are doing well. And until next week, happy reading.